and welcome to this edition of Look, Lead, Learn, where we'll be exploring the ways in which business leaders have navigated change to ultimately learn, adapt and grow through what has been a very uncertain last few years for us all. My name is Lewis Morgan from Cedus, and today I'm joined by Matteo Grassi, CEO and co-founder of Popup, the only no-code e-commerce platform that enables you to control the customer journey visually. Matteo, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about Popup and what it is you do?
Hi, Lewis. My background is e-commerce. I've been in e-commerce all my life. I started running my own brands in the early 2000s and then co-founded a e-commerce accelerator. After that, I had different direct-to-consumer brands from consumer packaged goods to supplements, fashion. And after that, we decided to build an e-commerce platform after trying every platform that was out there and also working for Shopify, which is probably the most popular e-commerce platform in the world. And so we decided to create something completely different. And in many ways, I have a feeling that if Shopify was invented in 2022, not 2012, I missed 10 years. Anyways, if Shopify was invented today, they probably would have used an approach very similar to what we did with Popup. I think it has been a while since you've seen an e-commerce platform coming out. You know, if you think about WooCommerce, Shopify, Magento, they're all like 15, 16 years old. And things have changed. Things have changed a lot in the world of e-commerce. And so we decided to build a platform for the modern world, let's say.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I know we spoke briefly before about the sort of journey you've been on and how you kind of made a conscious shift to step away from just the brands, because you've got a group that you run as well, and really have a crack at building the platform. And I imagine that's obviously a big shift for you. How has that been? How has that journey been moving into the platform world?
I realized that a lot of things that we're doing in Popup on a marketing level as well, it takes from almost a direct consumer approach. It takes from not really from B2B, from B2C. We're trying to build more a lifestyle brand rather than a software company, even though we are a software company. But the approach that we're using, we can call it more like the Apple approach, right? Which is they are, selling computers and electronic devices, but at the end of the day, they are actually a lifestyle brand more than anything else. And on a product level, Corey, my co-founder, he has extensive knowledge in software engineering and actually driving products. And that's what Ashley was doing as well in Shopify. I think the transition has been good, but most of all, we hired amazing people. That's, I think, the most important thing, knowing who to hire and knowing how to retain great talent. And then they're going to move you forward and move the company forward.
Absolutely. I think those first few hires, when you're really figuring out, where you want to be as a company and what you want to do as a company, I think they're so critical, and so many companies get it wrong, and ultimately that's why they fall by the wayside.
Yeah,
for sure. So if you'll allow me to set the scene a little bit, the last few years have posed lots of new challenges for businesses. We've kind of been back to back through COVID-19 pandemic, rise of remote working, to unfortunately the tragedy we see now in Ukraine. And this has been difficult for a lot of businesses, and they've had to make a lot of radical changes. And business leaders have had to come up with solutions to these problems, despite maybe the personal impacts they've had to deal with, or the personal impacts they've felt. How have the last couple of years been for you personally, but also how has it affected your kind of overall strategy and ways of working?
Yeah, I think the pandemic was good for us. I mean, especially on the direct-to-consumer side, because there was a shift in e-commerce purchases. So actually, one of our products was actually a mask. So that went very good. We came out at the right time. So the pandemic has allowed us to really grow very quickly with Viceroy Group, which is our direct-to-consumer company. And after that, we were able to kind of reap the benefits of all the acquisition that we did during the pandemic by actually creating products with retention, with high retention. That, I think, what kind of, made possible to stand out from the competition. Because what's happening right now, and if you look at like a lot of companies, including software companies like Shopify or other ones that have, reaped the benefits of the pandemic, now that it's kind of a market, and a lot of companies saw massive growth, and now they are, struggling. They're struggling a lot. So for us, it's it's been like different as well on the Viceroy front, which is the direct to consumer. With our direct to consumer brands, we invest less in advertising, especially because advertising costs have been rising exponentially in the last year or so. And we're more investing into retention, so more email marketing, community building, etc.
And was that kind of a proactive attempt to kind of foresee the changes that are going to be happening in the market, or was that like a response to the challenges you've had to face over the last few years?
Yeah, I think it came to a lot of, not mistakes, but when you start having some failures in your life, you start to think about what you did wrong, what happened. And so when we picked the product and we started creating product, we started putting some rules on, what kind of product we are going to sell. And so we decided that we're never going to sell products that had no repeat purchase. So if it was like, a jacket or some fashion item and things like this, that was like, no, that's not for us. So every product that we have, it's actually can be put on a subscription, or he has a lifetime cycle of 2 or 3 months. So we know that every 3 or 4 months, people will come back to buy it. So that's why we moved a lot into the supplements. You're basically selling subscription. Also because of the advertising. I saw the advertising increasing exponentially in the last year, but steadily the years before that. And when you have a cost per acquisition that is too high, it doesn't really matter what kind of conversion rate you get on your site. You're never going to make up the money. So you have to work on lifetime value and not on ROAS anymore.
Yeah, I imagine that's quite a big shift. I think we're seeing subscription models come through in every industry, really. My barber last week told me he was doing a subscription model for monthly haircuts. So it is leaking through. Obviously there's this conception that things we do in times of crisis are for simply that, like crisis situations. But what are the key things, or has anything really stuck with you about the changes you've had to make in response to these challenges that you'll perhaps continue to implement more day to day as you scale the business?
Yeah, 100%. I think the main thing is diversifying the markets that you sell to, because economic downturns or pandemic or anything that can happen will affect certain markets more than others. So if you're just selling into one country and that country is affected, then you're going to have a problem. If you're selling in multiple countries, then you have a better chance to diversify your consumers and also tap into markets that are more responsive and more keen to buy your product into a certain time. So we saw that a lot during the pandemic because every country had different rules. Every country had different supply chain disruptions. Some countries were doing better than others. And we saw, for instance, Germany doing very well for us for a while and then going down again. And then we saw UK picking up. But we kept in balance because while UK was going down, Germany was increasing or Italy was increasing. And when everyone was up, I mean, that was the happy days. But we really haven't had times where everyone was really down. We always had something that we could go to. And being responsive, I think that's the most important thing. It's like creating a system where you can adapt very quickly and catch, the wave, really, because you might have an idea and timing is everything, more than products sometimes, more than a lot of things that affected my business in a positive way, in a negative way, were just due to timing. Not that the idea wasn't good or the product wasn't good, it was just like the wrong time. And when we were successful, it's because somehow we got the timing right. And a lot of the times it's luck, and other times it's just the ability to, catch the wave. And when you see an opportunity to jump on it and test quickly and coming out with something that is not perfect, but it's good enough. And then you perfection along the way. A lot of people, I see sometimes people trying to do things, trying to be, thriving for perfection and not starting and then missing the opportunity. I'm not saying you have to, sell products that are not ready or going too quickly, but there is a moment where you have to say, this is good enough. There is good enough for, the famous MVP. This is good enough for going into the market and see how we go. And then, as you go along, you professional along the way. One example that we did is one of the stores that the Viceroy team launched recently, which is called Artists for Good, which is an e-commerce store that raises money for Ukraine. And that was put up in 2 days. 2 or 3 days, and he started to do about $10,000 in sales within 2 or 3 days in daily.
Yeah.
And now they're scaling it up. And it started like literally, just get some prints from 4 or 5 artists and, put a store, use Placeit to have some mock-ups. Within 2 or 3 days, we had the site. And now, they're adding more sections. Nowadays, there's more reviews and there's like already 600 Instagram followers. So it's now they're building it up. They're adding more products because, they, instead of trying to do too much at once, they just did it in 2 or 3 days and caught the wave.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of concept of the MVP is so powerful because it enables you to start first and foremost, but then it also enables kind of rapid iteration and learning as you kind of incrementally progress through the project or product, whatever it is you may be doing.
Yeah.
And if you do that well, I'd probably argue that you create your own luck to some degree because you put yourself in those opportunities to ride the wave. You've learned from mistakes in the past. You've picked up some key indicators. I think it's really important for us to analyze these kind of situations and understand what's really happening beneath the surface, so we can figure out, what's valuable or what was valuable and what's going to be valuable in the future. Because disruption is always going to be there, right? There's always going to be peaks and troughs in the market. The speed of change that we're experiencing now is probably faster than ever. Competition's probably fiercer than ever. And without starting and giving yourself an opportunity to learn and progress, like you said, you miss the wave or you get stuck behind, or it doesn't matter how good your idea is, if you don't get to execute it, you miss the boat.
Yeah, I think for MVP, there is a lot to say. I mean, for instance, I'll give you an example for Popup. It's like we knew that we were going to take a risk by launching an e-commerce platform because there's no MVP e-commerce platform. It doesn't exist. It's like you build a platform for someone that makes $1,000 a year. It's the same platform for someone that makes 10 million a year. It's literally the same thing. Like it's no different. And Shopify is a perfect example of that. When they come out with Shopify Plus was Shopify. I mean, it's like people think it was different, but it wasn't. I remember because I was there at the very beginning. Literally, you were assigned an account manager. You were put on a $2,000 a month plan, but the platform, it was exactly the same. They give you the ability to customize the checkout, but funnily enough, it wasn't there. It wasn't something that it was given to you. It was something that it was always there, but they just limited it. So what they did was just like, hey, untick the box, and then suddenly you're on Shopify Plus. But because the core functionality of an e-commerce platform is really, really similar. I had store that did $1,000. I had store that did 10 million. They're the same store. Nothing changed. I had to hire more customer service, but in terms of platform perspective, was exactly very, very similar, but pretty much identical. So when we decided to do Popup, we're like, we cannot really do an MVP. We have to take a risk, and it's like we have to build a lot to the point that there's no return. But we were confident because we were working for Shopify. We have 30 years of combined experience between our 3 co-founders in e-commerce. But at one stage, you're like, okay, I'm kind of confident enough that this is going to work and I'm going to make it work.
I mean, that makes sense in your specific scenario.
Yeah.
Was there any approach you had to test along the way without the luxury of having that MVP? Were there still tests you ran to make sure you were, hitting the sweet spots or hitting the markets that you wanted to hit?
I mean, it's like along the way, we also have an extensive network of e-commerce people, from agencies to direct-to-consumer brands, from anyone that understands e-commerce on a core structure and also on a marketing level. And we started to notice that whenever we were showing the platform, the e-commerce people were just sold straight away. And it's like, I get it. This is amazing. I want in. And the people that were not convinced were the people that didn't understand much about e-commerce. So we were like, okay, so we have something here. When you have people like us that have been in this industry for a long time and they validate your idea, then you're like, okay, we definitely have something. Also, we are merchants. At the end of the day, that's what it is. We were born merchants. We are merchants still. I still enjoy launching the stores. I think I'll never stop. I don't want to stop as well because I need to be in contact with what's going on. And I felt that since I left like Story Group and I started just focusing on Popup, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't hear about this new thing or this.
We feel like a bit out of touch with.
Yeah, that's why the Artist for Good. I launched it myself, so I went back and created it on my own. I took like a weekend and I jumped it out, and I remember feeling, oh, that's fun. Launching store is fun. Launching store and launching ads and selling products, and Yeah, it's very fun. I mean,
Great.
fun for me.
It's great to see. How do you see things evolving in the industry now, especially as you're trying to stay on top of it, but maybe in slightly more of a backseat now to where you were before? Because from where I've been sitting, e-commerce seems a completely different beast to what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What do you think's next?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to predict. I do see virtual shopping coming up. I have a big question if the metaverse is going to be the future or it's going to be just a niche. I don't think it's a bubble that is going to explode and no one is going to work on it. I think there is something there. I just don't know when it's going to happen and how big it's going to be. Like the adoption, that's very much a question mark for me yet. But I do see virtual shopping coming up a bit more. I do see NFTs sales coming up. I don't know for how long. I don't know if it's just like a fad, like drop shipping has been for a while, and definitely live streaming. Creator economy, I think that's a big segment. I think we're going to be moving away from content and entertainment that is owned by corporations and big media company. I think entertainment is now already owned by users, by creators, but most of these creators are not financed yet. So we need to find a way for them to make money and to be financed. So a ways for creators to actually monetize their content through brand partnerships and creating their own lines, selling their own products. You think about it, right? You have an entertainment company that is, creating content by, monetizing advertising that is paid by, let's say, a consumer packaged goods, like let's say vodka, for instance, right? Or whatever, maybe not alcohol, anything, right? What's happening right now is that a creator is launching his own brands of cookies, for instance, like Mr. Beast just did. And then that's it, right? He creates the content, he makes the product, then you have behind the scene, you have an agency or a company that does all the production, customer service and things like that. And the consumer buy directly from the creator. It's everything is changing. I see that happening. So I do see e-commerce coming in as a way for creators to monetize their audience. But a creator obviously would want more. They want live streaming. They want, their link in bio with other functionality. And at the end of the day, they want to create journeys. So when we decided to build Popup, we wanted to focus on customer journeys because we don't actually know what the evolution of commerce is going to be. But what we know is that no matter what it is, there's always going to be a journey from a starting point to a checkout. Because it's been like this forever, even before, we went online. If you're thinking about, 200 years ago, you're going to a shop, you enter, and you have to go through the store, purchase something. It is a customer journey. So if that journey is through pages or is through live streams or is through virtual rooms, I think there's always going to be a journey. And I think that's what Popup comes in. It's about creating your own customer journey and evolving with commerce, together with commerce.
Absolutely. I think that's something we see across all industries now when we think about like customer-centric product development, in all the sort of big fintechs and challenger banks. Everything they do now is through the lens of the customer, right? And they think in terms of user stories rather than project plans. So about how do we push this next increment of value for the customer? And if you've got a way of doing that through your platform where each step of that customer journey is optimized, then you obviously have the greatest possible output at the end, no matter what that journey might look like.
Yeah, I think what we notice is like the blueprint of the e-commerce store has not changed basically since the 90s. And every time someone was trying to adapt, like you said, the evolution of commerce. The evolution of commerce started, with Facebook. Facebook ads opened up a whole new possibility for like, hey, anyone, anywhere with a very little budget can start selling some products. You add the drop shipping on top of that. That's it. That was the golden era of dropshipping, where a lot of people with no money, very little experience, made a lot of money, and making, sadly as well, a lot of customers unhappy because you had all the AliExpress crappy products. But it was an evolution, and then obviously that changed and it moved into more. It just grew out, and then now Facebook, it's gone now and is more focusing on the whole metaverse thing, and Facebook ads is now behaving the way it was before. New things are coming up now. Mobile ads are coming up. live streaming are coming up, the power of building a community, which is kind of a different approach. So you build the community first, and then once you have the community, you come up with a product that you can sell to your community. So anything that came up and evolved with e-commerce, the blueprint didn't allow to actually monetize this in an easy way. And the only response that the market had was like, hey, add another app. There is an app for this. And so you have all this system trying to solve like a different problem. But in reality, the core problem is that you cannot create a customer journey. You shouldn't need 5, 6, 7 different apps to make your customer creating a shopping experience. And that's where we came in. It was like, well, let's create a platform that allows you to create your blueprint and create a shopping experience that you want, that is best for you, whatever you are or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense when you put it like that. What sort of impact do you think this is going to have on startup journeys, particularly when we talk about getting funded? If the power's moving, you can almost picture it moving towards the big corporations who can push out loads of these content relatively inexpensively, or they've got the money to do it. And then you've got kind of individual creators who are now monetizing their sales. But maybe the traditional startup is falling somewhere in the middle. Is it going to be harder to bootstrap in the future? What do you think is going to change?
Like bootstrap versus raising money? I think there is a big debate in bootstrapping and raising money. It seems that if you are a bootstrapper, you raise money, you are signed up to the devil, or you just suddenly switch sides and now you become the enemy. Although I don't understand all of this. It's very weird for me because I bootstrapped all my life. We always bootstrap. But we did close the funding round very recently. We haven't announced it yet, but we did close it. And the reason was because we couldn't do an MVP. There's no MVP. So Bootstrap is a great way to learn how to manage money. And I recommend everyone to do it before they actually raise money. It's just you need to understand how to manage money and your own money more than anything. And I see a lot of startup, coming in with the attitude of taking investors' money but treat them as free money. It's not like that. It's their money. It's not yours. It's like they're helping you to move forward, but you have to respect, I think, your investors in a way. And you want investors to respect your vision too. I think it needs to be mutual. So I think if you have an MVP and you can do an MVP without any investor money. MVP, I mean, something that can be used by a customer and it gives, the added value or unique selling proposition can be used by your customers, and you can impress them in a way and say, hey, this works and it solves actually a real problem and you don't need to raise. Go for it. I think you should do it. And at the same time, if you have done this before and you already know how to manage money, then go up and raise money. I mean, it's like, why struggle? It's already hard. I mean, being an entrepreneur is hard. The possibility of failures are a lot. And if I go back, I would have raised way before. Because I bootstrapped I'm 39 now and I bootstrap everything. So I think there are a point in my life where I was like, okay, I know how to do this. I mean, I know how to manage money. I know how to build a team. I know how to create things without overspending. I know how to, manage my financials and everything. Once I learned all of this, everything else that I bootstrap was just extra struggle that I had to go through. When now looking back, I was like, I actually didn't need to. I would have had less stress and be more relaxed into my life. Because at the end of the day, it's not that, you pay yourself a massive wage, but you just feel comfortable. It's like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to shut down next month unless I make, certain amount of money. But also you can create really the best product that you can create. And a lot of the times you have to make a choice of, do I make a decision that is going to bring money so my company is alive, or do I make the best decision for the products today? And a lot of times they don't go.
That's obviously a dilemma that you can come across at any stage in the journey as the company, really.
Yeah.
But it does play into that sort of timing thing as well that we spoke about before, of, how long is this going to take me if I bootstrap? Do I need to be so precious about this? Or do I have the skills now? Am I ready to bring on some funding that would catapult me to where I want to be much sooner? Because if you're not in the market, to ride those waves, or when those opportunities arise because it's taking you too long to release the product, or you're behind on, whatever it may be, then sometimes the ship sails. That's pretty important to.
Yeah, I don't get the whole war between bootstrapping and I just don't get it. I see it on Twitter. They're like bootstrapper, who's best? Who's best? If you are a bootstrapper, don't raise. But then most of the time, these people then end up raising money. So I'm like, okay, so you just were bootstrapping for a long time, but now they're raising. So this is why I think is like you have to do what's best for your business. It's no rules. It's not like, oh yeah, it's bootstrapping versus raising. It's what is best for my business. If best for your business is raising money, then raise money. If it's best for your business bootstrapping first and then raise money, do that.
We use what we call a mindset model method approach with the work we do at Cedus, and it basically falls under thinking like an investor, analysing like an investor, and acting like an investor. So, make the conversation about business benefit and ROI rather than just tasks and processes. And I think that's something that runs true whether you bootstrap or whether you raise the money. And like you said, it's about understanding that money, although it might not be your money, treat it like your money, because it can go just as quickly or it can go even faster, and then you're left with nothing again.
Yeah.
Cool. So I wanted to ask you about this upcoming event that Popup are running.
Oh yeah.
I know you've been working on it. The Pursuit Summit. Yeah. So it's something that looks really interesting, particularly when we talk about sort of power of community when it comes to learning and sharing ideas. But I also know there's a charity aspect behind it that's quite powerful as well. So what's the vision for this particular event, and how can people get involved?
Yeah. So the idea came to be because I was looking at a lot of these artists and musicians and celebrities coming together and doing concert and raising money for Ukraine. And I was like, well, maybe we can do something like this with entrepreneurs, and creating like a business summit where we come up with like, a concept and then we invite, 10, 15 speakers to participate, and we get people in to donate to Ukraine. So the summit is about nine different speakers, from like Mark Adams from Vice, Hugo from Jelly Smack, we have Kieran from HubSpot. So we have a few very good speakers, and they were so kind to actually give their time to participate to this and doing a presentation. And the topic is about building a community, finding your purpose and building a community and drive change. Not necessarily something to do with Ukraine, because we wanted something that people can get out of, and we wanted to keep it very broad, especially for this summit. And it's something that I feel passionate about. There's a lot to do with like, hey, how to run ads, how to do email marketing, how to, do personal branding. But the core for everything is like, what is the purpose? What is that you're passionate about? And also, how do you actually build a community, which to me is super important right now. No matter what you do, if you're doing SaaS, if you're doing e-commerce, it's always fully relevant. And also we invited 4 different NGOs to speak during the summit. So they have slots and you get a chance to actually see what they're doing with videos, with recordings of the ground. And we wanted to create a transparency between the impact that you're creating and the money that are donated to where the money goes. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to create a link between the two. A lot of the times you do a charity and say, we donate to Red Cross or we donate to UNICEF. You don't really see what happens.
And then it's gone. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, people need to be aware that when you donate to this large organization, and I have experience with that, a lot of the times you are not going to see the impact for a while. It's just very, very slow. They have like 50% of the money goes into their management fees and, advertising and all of this. And then there is a lot of red tape that they have to go through before actually the money arrives in Ukraine and created the right impacts. So that's why we selected like 4 NGOs that are on the ground, working on the ground and doing incredible things, and so it's going to be a chance to get to, see where your donation go. And then we have a DJ, producer, and a pianist from Kiev that are doing a live performance at the beginning and at the end. We're going to be streaming live, yeah, like a famous Ukrainian pianist. She's still in Kiev. She's been over there the whole time, and she agreed to do a performance live during the event.
Brilliant. No, it sounds really strong.
Yeah, the event is free. The event is free with the possibility to donate during the summit. So it's going to be like during the speeches, the QR codes that you can scan, and then you can donate as much as you want. We wanted to keep it free because we believe that, it's like knowledge. We shouldn't restrain knowledge, but obviously giving the ability to people to donate as much as they want instead of, being fixed to like a ticket cost.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes so much sense when you put it like that, because I think there's a lot of people who want to help, and it's not in anyone's best interest to put a paywall up to prevent people to get to that point where they want to help.
Exactly.
But great. And when is it? And how can people get involved?
Yeah, so it's the 29th of April. This is Friday, and we have an event on LinkedIn that you can check, and I can send you the page as well, the landing page, and it's just a registration, and you get to participate to the link. It's about 8 hours long. It starts like at 12 p.m. until 10 p.m. I had to pick that time because we have both
different
US
time zones.
Yeah, US. Chris Daw from the future is in Pacific time zone. So that's why we have people from UK and people from US time zone as well to join. Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, you spoke about a bit there as well, but it's kind of a common theme. We talk about purpose a lot. So in sales and marketing, sure, but also in overarching business strategy. So, whether that be commercial outcomes to gain X amount of new customers, X amount of market share, or charitable ones, or even kind of less quantifiable ones with events or smaller projects you might be running. How do you ensure that everyone in your organization is aligned behind that purpose? Particularly as I know, as you're quite spread out as a business, so perhaps it makes it more difficult to have that team huddle on a weekly basis or whatever you need. So, how do you go about assuring that alignment throughout the whole business?
Yeah, I think that one of the first things we did as founders were, defining our vision, defining our mission, defining our values, which is, I think, the three key pillars of every company. And to create a great culture, you don't have to really, put up like perks or things like that. There is a big difference between perks and, giving like, bonuses or giving like holidays or, paid gyms or whatever it is, and actually create a culture. For us, and for me as well, and for my co-founders and leaders, the leadership team, we always say that the values that we have, you need to live them in the world every day. And this is how you create a culture. You just define your values and you live them in the world in front of everyone else. And everyone just sees it and everyone will follow you. As simple as that. People tend to complicate things. But if you really believe in what you are saying, you're going to have a great culture. What is hard sometimes is that you write the values that sounds good, but you don't really believe it. And then everything sounds forceful, But this needs to come in as well when you hire. Like the people that you hire, there is the skills that they need to have. But before we hire anyone, we need to make sure that they have the same values that we do. And we'll tell them you can read the values and you can read the vision, you can read the mission. If you embrace it, you're welcome in the team and we can, talk about your skills. But if you have amazing skills and you don't have the right, you're not the right fit, or you don't share the same values, you're not a good fit. Nothing wrong against you. It's just, I think people have probably different values.
I think people need to understand, be on board with, but also in a startup culture, be enthusiastic about the role that they play within the business in achieving that mission or vision. They need to understand the work that they do is meaningful and valuable. And that's if you're on board with the values and you're on board with the mission, then that's valuable in itself, right? That trumps any supermarket vouchers or Friday socials or incentives that you could possibly put.
So as leaders, if your leadership team not only understand the values, but live the values every day in their work, live the values in their life, share them through their social media, your employees and people that work with you, they see that. Because they follow you. Everyone, we're a team and everyone kind of is following each other. They see that and they understand that the values that we put on a blank piece of paper, they're real. This is why, the charity things that we're doing, the impact things we're doing, because it's part of us, and the team sees that. Even if the team is not necessarily directly involved or some of the initiatives that we do, like the Pulse Summit is something that, the marketing team has organized, but the engineering team hasn't done nothing for it. But when it becomes a company, people are like, hey, we're doing this, then you have the values are lived in the world every day and people follow you. Being a leader is I think, is having people to follow you. You're a leader as long as people are following.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether they're following you off a cliff or you're still technically a leader. Yeah,
You have like a Slack handle. You are a chief whatever, right? Chief whatever officer.
great, cool. Bringing it back to strategy now. In our world, Cedus's world of strategy execution, change management, strategic divergence is a big problem for many organizations and is a word that gets thrown around a lot, right? So when we start a new project, build new products, create a new initiative, we make a plan. It all seems very simple and straightforward. If we do this, then we'll get here, and so on. That's kind of the way we look at things early on in the project. The problem is organizations don't really have a real way of measuring whether or not they're truly on that path. And this could obviously be problematic for a lot of reasons. If you can't reliably forecast where you're going to be in sort of 2, 3, 5 years' time, then it's hard to tell whether or not you're really achieving strategy or whether or not you're just doing the things you said you were going to do. So at Cedus, we achieve that through a kind of connected data and modeling approach that replaces kind of crystal ball work from C-suite execs or stakeholders with something that's much more scientific and data-driven. But how do you manage strategic divergence at Popup, and how do you make sure you're following that line of where you need to be to achieve your strategy?
Yeah, Popup, we're very early stage right now, which allow us basically to doing a lot of testing. So we're in the testing phase. So if I have to give an example or like a metaphor, it's like we're building a skyscraper. And at the moment we're building the foundation. So I spoke with people that built buildings before, and they told me, foundation is the hardest one. And then once you have the first floor done, the other floors are just copies of the same thing. It's actually easy to actually build up. It's just like copy, copy and paste. But the foundation is the hard part. So I think in Popup right now, we are in the foundation stage. So for us, it's basically budget allocation to some initiatives that we want to do. And they're very short, they're not long. It's like 2 or 3 months. We want to do this, and this is what we want to achieve. It's a KPI, so it's either a number or a yes or no. Did we get there? Did we didn't get there? What was the response that we got from, customers, future customers? What was the response that we got from social media if we're testing like a concept or a branding angle that we want to do? And then if we see that we have a good response, and we know what the good response needs to be, obviously, we know what we need to get, then we can tick a box and say, okay, this can be a pillar for our foundation. And they're doing this on a product level, and we're doing as well this on a marketing level. And from now until, September, October, that's all we're going to do. Arriving by the end of the year, if we have like these strong pillars, then we can decide, okay, now it's the time that we can build upon. But we have data, we have a baseline to actually work on. I see a lot of the times with startups, it's just very hard to make projection when you don't have a baseline to work on, right? So if you're like, hey, what you're projecting in 2 or 3 years, like a business plan. To me, like business plan, I don't know. I might sound a bit controversial now, but I've done business plan in my life once, and when I did, I was like, what is the point? This is like fortune telling. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what are you based it on? It's like you don't have a cost per acquisition, you don't know your churn, you don't know product market fit yet. It's like, why are you making a plan for 3 or 5 years? You can just put numbers on a chart and say, okay, so maybe we're gonna do this and this is gonna happen, but it's never like that. So I think the way you approach this is like I think business plan, financial modeling is so important, but you need to have a baseline. So the quicker you can establish a baseline to work on and investing a little bit of budget to get that data, then you can actually start making real progression based on those foundations. And this is what I was saying about the skyscraper. You just build the foundations, and then the floors, you just keep on multiplying them.
Yeah, I mean, you're building those foundations in product and marketing, for sure, but you're also building them in the sort of ways you work as an organization, and the way you manage change, and the way you develop. The way
you hire, the way communication is run within the company. Are we too much in Slack? Are we not meeting deadlines? Why we're not meeting deadlines? Is the team working well together? What are the weak links that we can even replace? Before we start really to get into the nitty-gritty of growth.
Yeah, and I think what's key to all of that is having sort of that real data at the heart, right? Otherwise, it is just going to be fortune telling. You need something that it can all clip onto as you almost as like a spine for that skyscraper.
Yeah, I mean, marketing has changed so much for us. I mean, at the beginning where we were like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then we completely changed our strategy just because a lot of the things that we're doing, we didn't see them. And then something happens that you're like, this is good. This is interesting. Let's test it out. Let's see if it's true or not. Let's see if what we saw, what we think it is or not. And then if you see what you think it is, then you're like, okay, we have something here. Let's keep it. And sometimes it's chance. Honestly, sometimes it's just something happens and you just have to keep an eye on things that are happening around you. Because a lot of the times you do things without thinking so much about it. And this happens during the war as well. I started to post about Ukraine just because I was passionate about that. And then I started noticing, wow, people are really responding on impacts. People are really, really responding on this. I was starting getting like a lot of attention. And it's something that we always felt we wanted to be more involved in this as a company, and then realize, okay, this is actually good. So let's actually start to, merging our marketing strategies with events and to be also impact driven. So the Person Summit is the first, but now we're actually going to do more events like this because the response has been great and also it's part of our values. So it's and that happened by chance. That wasn't in my plan, obviously, because I didn't forecast the war, obviously. It was something that we always felt passionate about, doing impact. And we were doing projects before with like mental health awareness in one of our brands. But honestly, when I was doing marketing plan for Popup, that wasn't in the picture. Hey, let's start an NGO and then start doing events to drive awareness for the cause, but at the same time, drive awareness to the company and Popup.
Absolutely, and it's those shared wins that are so powerful, right? You get to make a real impact on the causes that matter to you. Obviously, a really positive impact on the business for where you want to position yourselves and how you want to scale moving forward. But also with like the Pursuit Summit, for example, the wins of everybody getting involved and the value that everybody can take from these kind of events.
Yeah,
and that's what builds a community, right? Everybody sharing success.
Yes, 100%.
Great. So I'm slightly conscious of time. So unless there's anything else you'd like to cover, I'll thank you for your time, Matteo. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Would you like to let people know how to get in touch if they want to learn a bit more about Popup or the work you do?
Yeah, actually, I created a Linktree page, which just said Linktree. Matteo was taken. My name, Matteo was taken because I tried Matteo and he was taken. So all the links there. There's Popup, there's the Summit, there's Viceroy, and I added as well my music as well because I do produce music. So I just said, okay, I'll just put something personal so you can get to listen to my music. Nothing like banging and stuff. It's actually kind of chill. It's nice for work.
Fantastic. I'll post those links for everybody to get in touch. We're trying to cap these interviews off with some kind of golden words of wisdom at the end for people to take away and think about. So before we end, Matteo, what is your best single piece of advice for business leaders to take away with them today?
Yeah, I give an advice that my mom always told me, which is kind of corny, but I think she told me this when I was very young, and she kept on repeating that all my life. It's be kind and be brave. As simple as that. Just be kind to others and be brave in your decisions, and it's going to serve you well in the future.
Amazing. I think people can take a lot from that. Thanks again for your time, and let's catch up soon.
Thanks, Drew.
Amazing. Thank you.
Bye-bye.